Okay, so I'm just going to talk about a few miscellaneous things with respect to research funding and how you apply, but first of all, just go over the funding mechanisms that are still available from the HRC. Programs for 5 years, $5 million, projects, $1.2 million for 3 years, but you can apply for shorter term, and that funding is then prorated downwards, and there's no problem with applying for longer term, so 4 or 5 years, although the budget cap still applies at $1.2 million. Feasibility studies, $0.15 million for about a year. Emerging researcher first grants, $0.15 million for 3 years. And we have the Explorer grant still at $0.15 million for 2 years. So those mechanisms are still in place, and for the next round, 2016, we don't think that they will change to any great extent. And Deming here will talk about career development awards after I've finished. Now, again, I took a look at our database out of curiosity, and also just wanted to find out how things were going. And this is 25 years of program funding from the HRC, and you can see that there's quite a lot of variation year on year on the number of programs that the HRC has been able to support, from a high of 10 in 1992 to looks like 1 in 1995 and 2 in 2012 as well. But we're trying to see whether we can, with a bit of forward planning, to see whether we can stabilize those numbers to know, so that the researchers and applicants know what their likely success would be in applying. So the one that we've just finished, we will be funding 5 new programs. And a similar graph for projects. Again, huge variation over each year for the 25 years. You can see that last year we funded 50. Was that actually a little bit of an aberrant year, in that the number was very high compared to the previous 3 or 4 years. And this year we've come down again from the 50. We're more likely to be funding 33. Okay, so we've been receiving inquiries about program director eligibility, and the wording has changed a little bit, but we've tried to make it a bit clearer for people who are trying to work out whether they are eligible. The first 2 are quite straightforward. If you have an existing program, then you can reapply and have an overlap of a year. If you've been a program director in the last 5 years, in other words, your program expired 5 years ago, you can still apply and still be eligible for a program. The third and fourth bullet points are a little more difficult, but if you're a first named investigator on at least 2 project grants from the HRC or equivalent, then you can apply even though your contracts may have expired after the 14th of October. So there's a year where your project may have expired, but you can still apply and use that as an eligibility qualifier. And the fourth bullet point is the director needs to have begun a HRC project after 14th of October 2013, and you have other leads that have project grants from the HRC equivalent or current or expired after 14th of October. The significance of the 14th of October is that this year the closing date for program applications is 14th of October. The other requirements for a program director are 20% of the time dedicated to this particular piece and employed by a New Zealand organisation and residing in New Zealand. We have been looking at what a program should be, and currently we don't believe that a program would be 3 separate projects that don't fit. We are looking for integration and a relationship between objectives and the projects within that program. So they should relate together in a logical overall theme. And there should be good collaboration between the senior investigators. Now, the thing about programs is they're assessed by two panels. One is a science assessment committee that looks at detail at the science, and then the program assessment committee, which looks at the programness, things like vision, outcome, and integration and management of the team. So in writing a program application, the writers need to take into account that there are two phases of assessment. So I'm just going to move on now to project applications, because the project applications expression of interest starts on the, is it the 15th or 12th? I can't remember now. Yeah, in about 3 weeks' time. So we haven't published the forms yet, but we have got them almost into final form, and we expect to publish them next week. The titles GA216S and RHM216S. So there's two expression of interest forms. The sections are the same as last year, general information. So that's the type of research, the role and lay summary, and those are going to be filled in online as they have been in the past. Proposed research. There is a major difference in that the CV will be submitted online, so you won't need to paste it into a form anymore. Similarly, the research classification section of an expression of interest form is no longer in a form that you fill in. It'll be part of the portal application. So that makes it a lot easier for you and makes it a lot simpler for us, so we don't need to look for compliance issues as much as we have in the past. So remembering that an expression of interest form, the section 2 is the proposed research, and you're expected to fill in the sections there. The design methods obviously is an important part of an expression of interest, but the assessing committee are also very interested in other aspects of the application, as in the headers here, so those sections do need to be addressed adequately. So the full project application, we won't be publishing those until probably a little further on, but important thing to remember is that when you've submitted an expression of interest and you are invited to submit a full application, then the full application needs to be very, very similar to the EOI, so no substantial changes. In some aspects, we allow changes in named investigators. This is particularly in the New Zealand Health Delivery stream and the RHM stream, and that's to allow the applicants to build up a better team in those particular areas, because in the past we've noticed that there have been weaknesses in those two investment streams. As I said earlier, there's been an underspend in terms of the allocation that we're looking for. So we want to make sure that the applicants and the applications are the best that they can be. So let's look at the online submission system. As you're aware, the HRC Gateway is now fully operational, and there have been, in fact, some upgrades to functionality. As I mentioned, there are a lot more bits that can be uploaded directly onto the HRC Gateway as part of your application, and those bits are then knitted together with the application form that you're asked to fill in. However, don't forget that all named investigators, first, second, third, fourth, all down the list, they all have to have an account on the HRC Gateway so that that information can be filled in. So to get an account, click on sign up for an HRC Gateway account at the bottom there, and then once you've done that, you can update the profile. Some of the profile information is pre-loaded based on previous information that you've provided to the HRC. So you need to create an application to any open HRC funding round, and you'll find that on the home page. Access applications that list you as an NI, so if someone else has entered you as an NI, you will know about it. Sometimes that, people have their names put down on applications and they don't know about it until much later on. So we'd like you to be well aware that people are using your name for applications. So you can follow the progress of your applications too, so you can follow the status where your application is in the assessment process. And the My Tasks tab on the home page tells you things that you need to be doing. One of the things that we find, particularly with new researchers and those who are not used to the HRC, they're not using the HRC gateway to find out what's happening with their applications, and they should really be looking at that, because projects and programs, emerging researcher grants, they all have referee or reviewer reports being sent, and we notice that a lot of applicants don't realise that they have the opportunity to rebut those referees or reviewer reports, and they don't know that because they haven't been back to the gateway since they last lodged their reports, their applications. So do come back and take a look. I mean, things won't change very quickly because it takes quite a long time for all of those applications to move through our processes. Now, just a short thing about contract obligations, because I need to lead into something else. HRC funding and ethical approval. That is required, ethical approval is required for release of funding if ethical approval is needed. And it cannot be extended from one contract to another. Should be specifically linked to an HRC contract number, and more information can be obtained from Lana, who is sitting right here, if you want to stand up and wave your arm around. So Lana is just about to start the big job of looking at the new contracts that are being offered this week, and she'll be looking at all those applications to see which ones require ethical approval, and she'll be monitoring, and she'll be expecting to receive information about those ethics approvals when they come in, so that we know what to do with those contracts. Now, the other thing about research contract obligations is the reporting requirement. In the offer letter, there is a mention of annual reports, but I guess in the excitement of receiving an offer of a contract, most recipients don't look to the last paragraph about the need to report to the HRC, and we occasionally receive emails about a third into a contract, and someone says, oh, I think we're supposed to report, and what do we do? So the first thing you need to do is, if you are receiving a contract, then you should be working with your research office, who will know about the reporting requirements. And there's just a few things here that you'll be able to go to the HRC homepage, and there's the link at the top there for online reporting. I know that those who have worked with the HRC in the past tried to report and found the HERD reporting portal very difficult to use, and admittedly it's been very, very clunky, and we've, even at the HRC, those people who have used it for a long time have found it difficult and wonder why things fall over. We'd like to tell you that there's been a major rework of the annual reporting portal, and those problems hopefully will be disappearing in the next few months? In the last quarter of this year. So what will be different is that you will be able to go to the HRC gateway and start your reporting from that point, rather than going to a separate web page. So final reports and future impact. We are looking for indications in your final reports of discoveries and achievements, and also workforce development, outcomes, impact, dissemination, and knowledge transfer. And as Kath said, the HRC is looking at being able to tell the story of the HRC and the research that we fund. And one of the ways of getting that information is through your annual reports, in particular your final reports, where there is that additional information that we're looking for. So we're wanting to identify newsworthy findings, demonstrate the benefits of funding health research, and continued investment. So making a case for continued investment. And just note that there is an encouragement to put in your final reports, and that the HRC retains payments of contracts until a satisfactory report is received. And as you realise, all applications now require you to submit, as part of that application, a copy of the final report of previous contracts. And that allows the assessing committees to look at your past productivity. I've already mentioned the HERD upgrade happening late in the year. the key thing is the second bullet point is that you'll be able to log in to contract reporting through the HRC gateway using your existing login. So the same information that you need to log into the gateway, you only need to remember one name and one password. I think that'll be great because most people forget their passwords year on year.